Most of the time, when we are modifying shipping containers, we are worried about weatherproofing the envelope and the level of insulation, the R value that we get, because we are based out of Canada and it gets very cold here. But from time to time, we do modifications that are going inside of a climatized building, and then our priorities change. We're actually more worried about soundproofing of the envelope and maximizing the amount of space. And that changes our methods and it changes our advice. So stay tuned in this video. We're gonna show you another way to insulate and line shipping containers. Hope you learned something. As we scour the internet, we often see container-based structures inside of offices. There's a lot of really funky, cool offices. And once you're inside of a structure, you're not worried about the structural aspect as much because you're not battling the wind load and you're not battling the snow load. So you can actually start stacking them like weird Lego pieces, something that I am strongly against regularly. But you can get a little more creative architecturally if you're putting units inside of a preconditioned structure. So for this specific job in the design phase, we were wondering, how are we gonna frame this thing, especially on the walls? We knew we wanted to go with the wood studs up top because a previous version, we actually had to do opposing steel studs to hold that insulation up. And so we had technically I-beams up there with steel studs going across the roof. So with the wood studs, we can really stuff in this bad insulation and it holds itself there in the construction phase. These wood stud brackets take care of a lot of the thinking for you, and they install up in the 60mm tubing by pre-drilling and using a couple thread cutting bolts, or you can use self-tapping screws. After you have your two brackets installed, you can insert your 2x4 or 2x6 up in there, and you can either put 2 or 4 wood screws per bracket per side to hold that thing in place. The cut length for the studs is typically 89.5 inches, and that avoids you from tucking it in there way too tight and then having the ends of your stud actually touch that 60mm tubing. And if you're spray foaming, you can actually get some foam in there and it gives you just the tiniest little bit of thermal break, which is very much needed because then you're not transferring that humidity right through that stud and wicking that moisture. Now that we have it wood framed up there though, we need to work our way downwards. So we were toying around with the idea of using wood studs, which you can see here, this wall is framed that way, or utilizing steel studs. I want to show you the wood stud method. Right here, you can see the wood stud brackets. They have this little tail on them that sticks downwards, and that's there for a reason. That restricts you from putting your top plate right up against the corrugations. Because if these studs are touching the inside corrugations, those are gonna wick moisture. It's gonna cause this stud to mold, and it's a porous material and it will cause health concerns in due time. But another reason why people want these wood studs and potentially a wood wall is for a dry container that's ventilated, that's just for storage. This is solid now and you can build all types of shelving off of this. So there is purpose for this, just not if you're planning on living inside of this thing. If you're doing that, you're gonna wanna go to the steel stud option and you're gonna wanna use spray foam. But in a conditioned environment like this, we can get away with this. And what's nice about this mineral wool insulation, especially when you're using it with steel studs, is you can actually order it that way, and steel stud mineral wool insulation is wider than wood stud. So this 24-inch on center framing will have just slightly less than 24-inch wide bats, where if that was 24 inches on center with a 2x4, they would only be 22.5 inches. That allows us to take this insulation, which is very soundproof, and stuff it right inside of this steel stud. So we get a very nice insulated envelope, and I love the way that this works. And so this is the way we're gonna go with this. And this gives us 2 inches of extra interior, only having a 2.5-inch steel stud versus the 3.5-inch wood stud. So we love utilizing steel studs. For one, they're always straight. They're very light and easy to work with, and we can move them around after. So if you're framing around windows or doors, often we don't frame around the window until later. We are very excited to try out something new on this project. Here we are installing our Big Air 30 vents. These things are so simple to install and they are the absolute perfect solution for non-insulated structures. If you're looking to get rid of condensation inside of your shipping container, these are the best DIY option. All you have to do is cut a simple square hole and then drill and rivet these things in. But in this instance, we're just utilizing them to finish up the exterior of this container that's going inside of a building. And then we're gonna install a new fan. It's an 8-inch fan and I'm really excited to show you it later on in the video here. It's going to allow us perfect control over the environment inside of here and ensure that any of that fart smell gets right out of your office pod. We get a lot of comments and a lot of emails from people asking how they should ventilate their container home. And if you're looking to ventilate something that you're looking to live in my opinion, the best way to actively ventilate a structure is through an ERV or an HRV. But those things take up a large portion of your interior volume, and so you don't want to be doing that. You'd rather just utilize the air exchanges either through cracking a window or just opening your door and closing your door throughout the day. That is all you need to pass any kind of architectural or national building code. Here we're cutting the rough openings out of the container corrugations, and something you should keep in mind is the floor of the container. Are you planning on putting 2 inches of rigid foam on the floor, a subfloor, and then a finished flooring product? If you are, that's going to change the height that you cut your opening. You're going to want to cut it 3 inches up or so. And so here we're going to utilize the existing shipping container flooring, and so we're going to cut the hole right down to the top of the bottom channel of the container. But otherwise, it is definitely something you need to keep in mind. I'd like to give a subtle high five to our design team. This is Rev Zero. This is our very first prototype, and these things went together perfectly. And we're able to do that because this mimics our window framing kit. It's pretty much the identical setup and the identical method of assembling our window frames to installing this patio doors. Patio doors are basically a giant window that you slide open and walk through. So everything works perfectly. It comes with all the instructions required, and these can be purchased on our e-commerce platform. So you can get them both on Amazon or our Shopify website, containermodificationworld.com. The side frames rivet to the header and footer, and the laser referenced holes lined up perfectly. So you just rivet that together, select your top, insert your rain drip, and now just set your patio door inside of there. You make sure you seal everything up and sandwich that nailing flange with the provided metal flanges. Once that's done, this thing is ready to lift into place. It's 1 or 2 people, and you can get this in. It's very accomplishable and something you can do yourself. It's very important to measure and mark your hole where you leave yourself the outside corrugations on your shipping container. All of our window and door kits are corrugation dependent. Then the final step to installing this door is just simply drilling through the laser referenced holes and riveting it all together. Make sure you seal all of that up with an appropriate sealant, and you got yourself a beautiful patio door. We have 20 of these patio door kits available to purchase. If you're looking to get one, make sure that you go shopping and you get the 60-inch by 80-inch sliding patio door. It's very important to buy the right size of door. It's also important to make sure that you get one with a nailing fin, because that is a very important part in how the actual vinyl door connects to this window framing kit. We typically install our doors and our windows and then just frame right up to them. What's lovely about steel studs is you can just put your bottom tracks in, your top tracks, and then snap in your steel studs. And to go across the top header portion of this door, you can put a track from stud to stud, and then you just cut your smaller studs and stab those in, and that gives you a place to put your interior wall covering up in the header portion of this sliding patio door. The interior framing is more of a means to install your interior wall covering and not your structural member. The container is your structure. The framing is just for finishing. There's another set of doors on this shipping container, the actual container doors. This is a brand new shipping container, and these doors work amazing. We want them to continue to work amazing, and we do that by installing these container door flashing kits and wall flashing kits. These things allow you a void to stuff your insulation in. So typically we like to fill them full of spray foam, but it fits this mineral wool insulation in there nicely, and then you can slide in your interior wall covering. Everything closes right up to the wall flashing kit, and this thing is as insulated as the garage door of your home. This is where these door flashing kits really shine. It was so simple to toss this mineral wool insulation inside of these doors, and now we just have to slide in our interior wall panels. Look how clean and crisp this looks. So now that the walls are all framed up, we just need to stuff the insulation into the wall and ceiling cavities. And that requires a little bit of an art. I know the guys at the beginning just punch packed it in there, and that bugged my OCD. So I do like that stuffed in there nicely because every little bit counts. You don't want weird air gaps. But what's most important about this bat is just getting it in that wall cavity, because all the little air pockets inside of the bat, that's where the sound gets absorbed.
So this here is what it looks like when it's all finished up with all this mineral wool insulation. We have the thicker batten style insulation up in the ceiling with the 2x4 studs, and then the rigid stuff in the partition wall and on the side wall. So this is very soundproof. It feels really weird on my ears inside of here, and it is going to work great for its intended purpose. So this inside of an insulated, conditioned environment, we're not worried about that vapor barrier, and this thing is going to perform as intended. The only real place where sound is going to come inside of this thing is these vents here. So we actually have a very new vent that I'm really excited to show off. This is an 8-inch through wall vent from AC Infinity. We love their products, and this one here allows you to actually install this fan. It has a large CFM. I think it's over 300 CFM, and it's you can change the direction of the flow. So we can utilize the one cover as an intake, and then we got the exhaust, or right in the intuitive controller, we can actually switch that around and have the air go the other direction. So these things are great because you get a lot of air movement and you don't get that annoying buzzing, humming sound from a little tiny fan whizzing at full speed. Here with this partition wall, we utilize our steel studs, and it's very low cost method to build yourself a wall. You basically smack your track across the top and down on the floor and snap your studs in. Same method as doing the walls. We always leave a little peak hole here of just non-insulated zone just so we can get through up until we're ready to board this thing. But yeah, we have a whole nother video on this. It's a pretty old video, but it does show you how to do that. And it's a very low cost method. Really, all you need is 2 steel stud brackets and some steel studs, and you can partition off containers. If you're looking to do multiple containers, potentially some people with storage facilities, you want to have roll-up doors on the side and rent out 8x10 bays, you can utilize this and just buy yourself like a 10-foot or a 20-foot steel stud pack and get to work. There's one area on this mod job where we've lived and we've learned, and that is underneath this door here. The way that we frame this wall, we actually have a track on the left side and a track on the right side. But a lot of times when you frame interior walls of houses, you run your bottom plate right through your doorways. You frame all your walls, then you know that your wall is nice and straight on both sides of your doors, and right before you're ready to install your door, you cut that bottom plate out of there. That is essentially what we could have done here with these steel studs. So we could have continued this bottom track all the way underneath, but we didn't really know how much space we had there and how tall those tracks are. So we could have continued straight across. That would have made sure that this is nice and straight. I'm sure it's gonna look great anyway, but it also would have given us some backing back there. Now we can put some PVC palite or something. We could have screwed right into there, and we'd have had a vinyl trim right underneath here. And that's also something that we can have as a bit of a kick plate or something. Or if you step on this vinyl, just a bit more structural integrity under there so you don't crack that vinyl.
So to finish this off, we went back to our PVC interior wall covering. This is such a great selection for industrial applications. It's so hygienic, it's so easy to clean, and there's no mudding and taping and painting. So you're not cracking your walls as we're delivering this thing. It always looks mint throughout the test of time. The one drawback to this product is it really allows the sound to reverberate off the wall. It's a very rigid interior wall covering. And so for this modification, it may have been a little bit better to use some sort of a sound deadening interior wall panel, something that was a slat wall that maybe had some sort of felt inside of it that would allow those sound vibrations to really get into this mineral wool insulation and then deaden. We can also work on these through wall 8-inch fans if that's something you're interested in. Let us know down in the comments below which product you think is better and how you'd use it on your next container-based structure project. So if you enjoyed this video, please help us out and give it a like. We got a lot of cool, innovative infrastructure projects coming up this summer, and so you're going to want to subscribe and ring that bell to be notified of when our next video drops. Hope you learned something.